All right, we're going to read chapter 2 tonight. This is actually right before the part that I think I read to you already about the color black and Juana's chambers. So this feeds right into that. It's a little longer piece, that's why I'm doing it on video. I hope you like it. Chapter 2. Burning ash, soot. The putrid smell was inescapable. City walls were ground by Spanish artillery into choking banks of dust, and the reek of gunpowder poured into one's nostrils. A hellish human stench rose from the city, and the Mediterranean Sea blew that stink across the outskirts to the Spanish position on the sandy beach hills overlooking Malaga. Juana was only 8 when her father ordered the southern caliphate town of Vélez attacked, and 9 days after that, a siege on the port of Malaga. Despite her age, Juana remembered it clearly. She thought she did anyway. That her or her parents and their court had so often rehashed the story and politics of the campaign against Malaga and the grand prize of the capital, Granada, that she created an adult's memory of it. The smell, the noise, the death. These memories were frighteningly lucid whether they were real or not. She thought she remembered her father, King Fernando, leaping up from dinner one night, grabbing his sword and entering a fray that came perilously close to the royal family's pavilion. That was in Vélez, before her father sacked it. But it might have just been an oft-repeated story, too, not a true thing that actually happened. No way to know anymore. She thought she remembered a Muslim ambassador in a yellow turban arriving several months after the siege began to report that inside its walls Malaga was chaos. Governor Hamed Zeli had gone mad from the Spanish bombardment, and a new official was beseeching for King Fernando to lift the siege. The people of Malaga were starving, eating cats and rats. Disease rode rampant in the streets. She remembered the ambassador's voice, his tremolo, and how his hands shook. She remembered expecting her father to explode in anger at the ambassador. The Spanish had offered very liberal terms when the siege began, but the governor had rejected them. Why not save a month's worth of lives and surrender when they first talked terms? Juana wanted to scream at the ambassador. Was that an adult Juana's memory of what she wanted to scream? It seemed like an awfully mature thought for an 8-year-old. There are no terms, Fernando answered, without raising his voice nor shaking his head, nor giving even a small hint of the playful sarcasm customary in polite Castilian discourse. The air in the tent grew very cold, young Juana thought. I will destroy your wall, and my soldiers will take your city by force, her father said in flat disinterest. Tell your governor to prepare his citizens for enslavement. That's an actual quote. Rey Fernando, with respect, the ambassador said delicately, his hand trembling in his lap. My master bid me tell you if you responded thus, he promises to kill all the Christian Spaniards in Malaga. Fernando's heavily lidded eyes grew heavier, his voice flattened. If the hair on one Christian head is touched, my soldiers will slaughter every man, woman, and child in Malaga. As the ambassador galloped down the hill into the outskirts outside the Great Wall, Spanish ordnance, a quarter-mile of it, exploded to life. Juana was sure that was a real memory because she remembered leaping in fright at the cacophony. Around the clock for the next 4 days, the largest collection of artillery to that point in European history, with great long-barreled Lombardas and stout Pedrosas, took aim at Malaga's wall, blowing shot made of marble gathered from the destroyed columns and buildings of Vélez. The bones of the last city cracking the spine of this. Young Juana was attending her mother, the Queen, who was here to administrate the recovery of the wounded. The Queen was with her 3 oldest children, Bela, the Prince Don Juan, and Juana. The 2 babies were being wet-nursed in the rear guard. The 4 of them stationed in the royal pavilions overlooking the port of Malaga and the rich blue sea. Isabel was watching how well the wagon line worked to carry her soldiers back to safety. The ambulance was an entirely new invention, designed and financed by the Queen personally, and an ambulance line was simply a reversal of the supply lines she had perfected in her last decade of fighting the Spanish Caliphate. For young Juana, though, war was not a chessboard. It was screaming men and exploding cannons and white bones tearing through wet muscle. She was 8 years old. The princess had seen other sieges and battlefields and considered herself a tough little girl because for years and years everyone said she was a tough little girl. But nothing in European history had prepared her or humanity for Malaga. On the third night of the around-the-clock barrage, Juana covered her ears and cried, "This noise! This stench! It's too It's too horrible, Mama. Can't we join the pavilion in the rear guard tonight?" Queen Isabel slapped Juana so fast the girl didn't see where the hand came from. Her older sister Bela straightened, as though she herself had been slapped. Her brother Don Juan gaped for Juana to their mother. Though just 9 years old, the boy was called Don Juan because he was the prince, the heir apparent to Mother's throne in Castile. Don Juan told his sister later he'd been hoping the same thing as she, a break from the barrage and a night of quiet respite in the rear guard. "Dear God, it would have been lovely," he said later. "Don't whine when those men are dying and bleeding for you," Queen Isabel shouted over shrieks and the crash of cannon fire, bending over to get her face as close to little Juana's as she could. Juana didn't even react to the slap. She was so moved by her mother's words. She looked down into the swarm of Spanish soldiers around Malaga and the line of wounded. Little Juana saw a wagon loaded full with weeping men at the base of their hill, rolling by and tottering through beach sand, a small pond of blood and urine forming in the wagon's wooden bed. A Latin Ave Maria uttered in a foreign accent rose from it. Right, Juana thought, listening. We asked Christians to come fight our Muslims. All these men are here dying because we asked them to. The whinny of the ambulance horse disappeared into a roar of artillery. One thing to so reconquer Spain on a banner, which Juana and Bela helped to do many times, but these men, all speaking many different languages, were the actual conquerors. They believed in her parents' Reconquista so deeply that they came here to die in this war from all over Europe. She's right. They came here for Mama and Papa, for a future Spain under Don Juan, for God. Juana slowly nodded in appreciation and whispered, "Oh, their smell is sacrifice." "Correct," Isabel said, surprised. "It's the smell." "Very good, honey," Bela blurted, seizing the moment to act as Mother's lieutenant. "Let her finish," said Mother. "What is it? What do you smell?" Juana swallowed. "Their martyrdom." Mother stepped back from Juana and straightened. "Yes." Don Juan and Bela gave genuine smiles to their younger sister. It was always a huge relief when one of Mother's thunderstorms could be avoided. Bela took Juana's smaller hand. "Is there something sweet to eat, Mother?" Don Juan asked. It was his role to smooth out the Queen's jagged moments. Don Juan was the only one who could do it. "When?" Mother said softly. "Let's enjoy some dessert together. I brought caramel flan for the victory dinner. Shall we have a little taste of it now?" The sisters, brother, and mother sat at a table covered with embroidered white cloth eating spoonfuls of caramel flan while the Queen's guitarist plucked a northern song on his vihuela, and the three children thought of Segovia, its impossible towers, and the encircling ring of cool blue mountains. How Bela, Juana, and Don Juan played their game of maze chase on the never-ending grid of horseshoe-shaped shadows cast over the city by the ancient Roman aqueduct. And for a heartbeat, there was no deafening siege, no death shrieks for help from unseen mothers and sweethearts. And the grown Juana was sure she remembered all of this with her own mind, and that it really did happen. She really did have a brother who was sweet as caramel flan, an older sister who liked to hold her hand, and both were once children like she was, with rolls and games to play, and there really was a time when Don Juan's and Bela's untimely deaths were as far away as the cannons aimed at Malaga were from a white linen tablecloth, held at bay by a spoonful of dessert. There you go. Now you can go to sleep.